Hello, I'm ABX and welcome back to the video. Today I have something pretty exciting to share with you all because it is going to be gameplay from the next update coming out for Minecraft on the consoles. It's going to be a survival update, and this gameplay came from a livestream by the way, and it's also going to include dual wielding. This is something I briefly mentioned in my other video, but a few people are confused as to exactly how dual wielding is coming, but it's not really coming, but still it's going to be in there and it's kind of hinted towards. So I wanted to talk about the exact particular ways dual wielding works in this update, and also talk about why it only works in those particular ways, because I think it's actually a very clever move by 4J, which I wanted to explain a bit more and maybe explain where that's going in future. So hopefully you do all enjoy this video talking about that. You can like it so because it helps out the channel, and let us know you do like seeing gameplay from the next update. This is really great that we can see this like physical gameplay of how it works and stuff, and you're actually going to see how the offhand slot works right now actually, because as you can see he's got a map out, and a map is one of those items you always have in Minecraft console. It's an exclusive, if you're not familiar, you always have a map on you, but it's really cumbersome to just hold it and look down all the time. So now one of the things you'll be able to do is put the map in your offhand slot. It's going to be one of the two uses we've seen so far for the offhand slot, and you're going to be able to hold your map while still doing anything else with your right hand. So as you can see, it takes up a 10th slot on the hotbar, a particular slot just for these items right there, and that means that you now have access to the other 9 slots, and you can do whatever you want with those. So you can still mine with a pickaxe, you can use a shovel, you can fight people if you want, and you can do that all while holding a map. And as you're going to see, the map is just entirely unaffected by that. So that is one of the two uses for the offhand slot, and honestly it's the one I'm more excited for. And you might question though, like, oh, so now you can put any item in there? No, it only works with this item, the map, and as you're going to see in a few seconds, it also works with other types of arrows, any type of arrow you want to put in there, to put it in the offhand slot. So again, the question might then be like, okay, so there's an offhand slot like the PC, why doesn't it work with every single item? And the truth is, I think they went for like the halfway approach to dual wielding, and I think they did it in quite a clever way. So yeah, first of all, let me just explain that the other clever use that you might not be familiar with, or you might not have seen just yet, is you can now put arrows in that offhand slot, and you'll always use the type of arrow you're trying to use, because there's a lot of varieties of arrows. As you can see, there's like 32 plus the default one, and if you have lots of these in your inventory, because you're an arrow man, you're really low, or you're an arrow person, I should say, you want to use arrows, the different types of arrows for different situations. Now you can always put a type of arrow in your offhand, and you'll always fire that one. It's not based on like proximity to the bow anymore, it's going to be based on that offhand slot. You can still do it the old way, but if you want to do it in a much more predictable way, in a way that you know exactly what's happening, you can do it that way instead. So yeah, that means that there is only going to be 2 uses for dual wielding when it first comes out, and at first I heard this and I thought, well, I mean, they're not really too useful. I mean, the arrow thing, you don't need, I mean, I can already use the old system, so it really is just maps in that offhand slot. But I think this is actually a very tactical move in my opinion, because it's kind of like what the PE team has done. Bear in mind, dual wielding and the new combat was the most controversial Minecraft PC feature ever, and you could argue that that's where the downfall of the game came from, because now the community's fractured between a bunch of updates. It's not a good thing for the PC game, and Jeb said like, oh yeah, he's going to be very cautious when it comes to console, and console and Pocket Edition I should say, and I think that's what's happening right here. I think this is like our introduction to dual wielding in a way that literally no one can be offended by. The only thing you can say about dual wielding is like, oh yeah, this isn't enough, like, because what is it, like arrows and maps, like I think most people aren't going to have too much of a use for either of those things, but the thing is it's meant to be done in such a way that it's just not offensive. It's there, you can put stuff in it, and you can be like, oh yeah, I guess this is nice, and I think it's just designed to make you like dual wielding a little bit while adding a tiny bit of functionality to the game. Again, for me in particular, I'm going to really enjoy this map feature, but it's just a tiny little feature in addition to everything else, and I think that's clever because it's, again, people's first introduction. Now you'll see when you play PvP and you do this sort of stuff, you'll see people who have their arrows in their left hand, you'll see people with the maps, and it'll just become a thing you find a bit more normal. So I imagine what they're going to do slowly, with like, let's say the next update, introduce more items to it, and then eventually allow you to do any item in that slot. So, allow you to have a torch in there, and because people will be more used to how the system works, for instance, and this is, again, I imagine they're going to like slowly phase it in. This means that dual wielding will become accepted too, because, oh yeah, it's just purely positive, and then at some point after that, presuming it's not too offensive, then they could move to the new combat in a way that I think is the clever compromise between the community. I've said this for a while, pretty much all of this year. The big problem that, 4J and indeed, Mojang, Minecraft, whatever, the game is going to have in general is that half of the community really wants the new combat and half the community really hates it. And I think this is the really clever line down the middle to draw. And it didn't hit me until like a few days after stream, where it's like, oh yeah, well the way you make people like a feature is you kind of slowly phase it in. People don't like change, I think, particularly when it comes to people who hate new combat. So instead of introducing it all at once, you introduce tiny bits and then tiny bits, and then everyone gets used to it. And if we don't like something, then maybe we go backwards. But I don't think anyone can argue with each of these individual changes, and I don't think in particular these arrows and these maps can be argued against. So dual wielding is coming in the next update, but it's not full dual wielding. It's dual wielding for 2 items that you can't even really use, but it's designed to be in there so that 2 hands is part of the game, and I imagine that's then going to lead into more features in the future. I mean, maybe I overestimate the whole thing and they have no plan and this is just like, oh yeah, here's a thing we could do, but I really feel like they're doing the same route as the PE, where they're just making it a little bit slow, and I thought that was clever, and I wanted to share it with you all, because if If you don't like new combat, good news. There's going to be many steps where you can like get used to it. If you do like new combat and you're excited for dual wielding and like all the possibilities that will allow, then good news. It's going to slowly be phased in a way that's not going to cause the big, civil war in the community, which is, I think that's good news, honestly. So yeah, that is my thoughts on dual wielding. There is some gameplay of it, and as you can see, I think this saying dual wielding's in this update is a tiny bit misleading, but I think saying dual wielding's not in this update is also, which is why it's clever. You blur the lines and you confuse people, and I hope you did enjoy this video covering that and explaining exactly what's going on there. Maybe you thought this was too much, maybe you like these sorts of videos. Let me know with the comments down below, like if you liked it, share if you really liked it, and subscribe if you're not from around these parts of YouTube, because I make videos about Minecraft console every single day on my channel, and if you subscribe, you'll see them daily on your homepage. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.